Hi, thanks for coming, everyone. My name is Johnny Liu, and this is my presentation that I like to call Show Me the Money. No, seriously, we got bills to pay, right? We're going to talk a little bit about games as a business. So it's going to be kind of like a quick crash course in some basic economic theory, and we're going to cover what a KPI means and how to look at the KPIs, so key performance indicators. So before we really start, I just want to introduce myself a little bit. So who am I? My name's Johnny. I have an MBA and a bachelor's in marketing. I got into gaming first doing QA, then I went over to community management, and now I am the associate product manager at Standing Stone Games. Before we start, I want you to think about yourself in two different forms. The first one is yourself as a consumer. I will refer to this as consumer you. What kind of games do you buy normally? Do you buy single player, multiplayer, free to play, and then you do in-app purchases, things like that, DLCs, and how much do you spend on them? Then I want you to think of yourself as developer. So developer you. What kind of game do you want to make? How much salary do you want to make? And most importantly, when you eventually have your own studio, like we all want to have, is how much salary do you think your team should make? Money. This is something that everyone should often think about. What's the difference between revenue and profit? A lot of times people see giant headlines like Fortnite, $3 billion in revenue. Does anyone know what the difference between revenue and profit is? It's one word, it's cost. So you can have a huge revenue, but if your cost is more than your revenue, you're still bleeding money out. So when we talk about cost, there's going to be two different forms of cost that most people talk, two different types of cost that you can categorize everything into. The first one's a fixed cost, so salary, rent, these are things that are fixed, and that's because it's like every month you got to pay out this much to your salary, you got to pay out this much to your rent. That number doesn't change. Another one is variable cost. So variable costs are things like your power bill, your water bill. If you want to buy swag, it's going to cost you $5 per shirt. If you buy 10 shirts, that's going to be $50, things like that. Most importantly, this doesn't necessarily have to be one or the other. These are not mutually exclusive. Sometimes they can be a mixed cost, the combination. For example, licensing fees. If you want to license something from someone, they might say, hey, I'm going to take a flat fee from you, and then every sale you make after that, I'm now going to take an extra dollar or an extra whatever percent. That kind of deal. So your cost doesn't have to be either fixed or a variable. It could just be both. Or even scaling costs. So Steam, everyone knows a little bit about Steam. They recently changed a thing where they say we're going to take 30% of all your revenue to start. If you make more than a certain amount, we're going to scale that cost down to 25%. So it's costing you less, but it's scaling up. You have to make more to get that savings. So most important ones, hidden costs. The big one for games is refunds. So who here has refunded a game before? Or had a game refunded? All right. So, for example, if you're making a game and you release it on Steam for $1, consumer Johnny buys developer you the $1 game. Steam has that clause where it says if I play less than like 2 weeks or 10 hours, I can get a refund, no questions asked, right? So I give you $1. I decide about 30 minutes of gameplay, I don't like it. I want my $1 back. I go to Steam and I say, hey, I want my money back. Steam says, okay, great, here's your money back. What happens to developer you? Anyone know? You're out money, right? That $1, did you see the whole $1 from it? No, Steam already took their cut of 30%. You got 70 cents. And then that's not including things like a Visa or MasterCard transaction fee or some other fees that you might have with whatever deals you may do. So I gave you $1, you got 70 cents. I went to Steam and I said I want my $1 back. What does Steam tell you? Steam says you owe me $1 because Steam gave me the $1 back. So not only are you at $1, you're not only are you out that $1 you could have made, you're out 70 cents. You just paid Steam 30 cents without making any money. So that's a really important thing to consider when you're doing anything that has to do with letting people refund. And then the sunk cost. The sunk cost is something that you can put money into and then you're never going to see it. It's not coming back. So how many of you have put money into something and said, oh, I have to use it because I already paid for it. That's the sunk cost fallacy. You don't necessarily need to use it just because you paid for it. So the other half of the profit equation is revenue. This is the money that you make. There's two components of a revenue stream. One is the price, how much you're selling it for, and then how many of them you sell. And I can't talk about these two without the economic theory of elasticity. So elasticity is basically how bendy or how flexible a certain good is. So to best point it out, to give you some examples, we're going to talk about what's perfectly inelastic and perfectly elastic. These are generally not very common that you see. So for example, a perfectly inelastic graph will look something like this. A product that is a perfectly inelastic good would be like insulin for diabetics. It doesn't matter what price you charge it, they're going to need to get it or they're going to die. So I can charge a whole lot of money, like in our current situation, right? Medical costs, people charge so much for insulin and they have to buy it. It's not really an elastic good. You need it. The other side of that is perfectly elastic goods. So things like different colored dice that you see when you go to a convention. You're kind of like, okay, yeah, I'll buy some or not. It's not really a necessity. The less you need it as a necessity, the more elastic it generally is. That's a general term. But none of the price elasticity curves will ever look like either of these. Most of them don't. They probably look closer like this, right? So the higher price you charge, the less you're going to sell. The lower price you charge, the more you're going to sell. Which begs the question is it always bad to charge a higher price? Is it good to charge a low price? But what we're all really asking is, what is the best price you're charging to get the most sales out of it? Profit is simply revenue minus cost. So we just covered how many things you sold at what price and how much it costs for you to make it. So in other words, as a consumer you, how much are you willing to pay for your goods? And as a developer, how much did it cost for you to make? That difference is going to be how much you make. With you so far? Okay. Key takeaway, break-even point. This is a very important concept. The point at which you break even. A lot of times people don't consider this. They don't map out all their things and they just try to make the product and they go. You have to know what your break-even point is. It's when your revenue equals your costs. You didn't lose money, you didn't gain money, you need to know where that is. After that, you should be making money. If you're not making money after your calculated break-even point, you should probably look at your numbers again. So for example, let's just talk about salary costs. If you need to cover $200,000 of salary, 4 people at $50K a year, your game is $50. How many do you need to sell? 4,000. Now to the key point to the fun part is KPI. KPI is short for key performance indicators. These are as useful as looking at the KDA ratios at the end of a league match or end of a Dota match. They're kind of there, you can kind of get some stuff, but they're not really useful at telling you the whole story. There's 3 big ones that everyone throws around, at least from my experience. One is ARPU, followed by ARPPU, followed by ARPDAU. Each of these is going to tell you something different. They all mean something generally in the same ballpark. The R part is just average revenue, and then per user, per paying user, and then per daily active user. So these are all different things based off of the average revenue for every single person. ARPU, average revenue per user, is a very broad definition. The number is going to tell you less than the curvature. $200 in revenue can look very, very different between 3 different kinds of charts. This is $2 per user, standard bell curve, a bimodal distribution that is also $2 per user. And then you have the whale situation where you have one dude who's giving you $200 and no one's giving you anything else. That's still $2 per user. This is all $200 of revenue. So when I say $2 per user, it doesn't tell me exactly where your money's coming from. ARPPU, as I said before, is the average revenue per paying user. So we're just going to take all the people who didn't give you any money and drop them out of the equation. So $200 revenue, still the same amount of revenue as before, but the ARPPU is going to be different. So for the standard bell curve, it's $2.35. For bimodal distribution, my ARPPU is better. It's $2.85, right? And for the last situation where I have a whale, I have $200 per user. If I'm pitching something, I'm probably going to use that number. And if I can pull the blinds over you, someone could probably do that. Not me per se, but like someone could probably say, I've got $200 per user, but it's one person. So that KPI of ARPPU, $200 per user, great. Is it one person? Is it a whole lot of people? That's going to tell you more when you look at the actual chart than just like the numbers. ARPDAU, there are no fancy graphs for this one because it's different. It's a day-to-day basis. It can be affected easily. So everyone who plays any game that has a login event, right? Oh, it's a special login event. I could spike that daily active user to get people to log in. It's like, log in for your special gift, right? Everyone's seen those examples in games. It's like, oh, I got to log in to get the thing. Day of the week, most people probably don't play on weekdays or weekends. That's going to fluctuate. Server downtimes, that can affect your daily active user. So all these are just going to be easily changed based off of which time frame you take it from. If I told you your ARPPU is up, what would your reaction be? Your average revenue per paying user is up. Good, right? Right? Of course, it's great. Numbers go up and to the right, always good. Not always. Remember, this is actually just a simple fractions, average revenue per paying user. So if I drop my per paying user, I can still get that exact same spike in ARPPU. So $2,000 at $100 paying users, I get $20 ARPPU. If I take the same amount and say there's 50 paying users, I get $40 ARPPU. But you just lost 50 paying users. You lost half of your paying user base. So you want to double check your numbers. Where did it happen? If your ARPPU is up because your average revenue goes up, that's great. But if your ARPPU goes up because you lost paying users, something bad happened, and you really should take a look at that. Key takeaway, never take a KPI at its face value. If someone throws a KPI at you, take a step back, think about it, ask questions. Why is it going the way it's going? Why is it going down? Why is it going up? Compare like measurements to like measurements. What I mean by that is if you're going to take ARPU, measure it against ARPU, if you're going to take ARPDAU, measure it against ARPDAU within the same time frames. So for example, don't take a time frame where you did a huge expansion update and then measure it against a time period where you didn't do a huge expansion update. Much like the talk before, we talk about trying to control for all the variables. You want to try to control for as many variables as you can to identify which variables you moved to make your numbers shift. And then take into consideration externalities. Things that aren't in your control is what's called an externality. For example, when Assassin's Creed Odyssey dropped, you got to pay attention to that. Did your numbers go down because everyone decided to go play Assassin's Creed Odyssey? Or when WoW does an X-Pack, everyone pays attention to that because it has a huge reach in its audience that when an X-Pack comes out, you better be prepared for players to get distracted and move from one game to another. So let's go through some quick scenarios. If you're making a single player game, no extras. Salary costs, same example, right? For $200,000, how much do you sell your game at and what do you price it at? Right? Think about that. But that doesn't even begin to consider all the other costs that you need to cover when you're doing any kind of game. So you got to do your rent, you got to do your hardware, you better have a lawyer on hand, retain a lawyer just in case something happens, any kind of refunds. If you're in Massachusetts, I think there's a law that you have to provide for healthcare costs if you have so many people. So there's just a lot of costs that go into running game businesses that most people are just like, oh no, it's fine, it's easy. How many of you played a single player game when it released and said, oh, if they had 2 more weeks to fix things, it would be a much better game? We've all seen that situation before, right? So if this is your situation right here, you say, I can make it better in 2 weeks. What does that cost you just in salary? Right? If it takes you 2 weeks to do it, it's going to cost you $7,680 just to make that patch. You punt that out 2 weeks, it's the same cost. You release it early, it's still the same cost because you got to punt that out later. You got to make the patch, you got to develop, and you got to deploy it. And then because it's a single player game that you're not selling any extras, you have to eat that cost because you can't really sell like a game fixing patch, right? You're not going to be able to say, hey, you guys, you want to buy this patch that's going to fix the game that you just bought? No, you don't really want to sell that. So there's always cost to be incurred whenever you're making decisions like this. So, and there's another scenario, free to play. Same salary cost. What do you sell and how much do you sell it for? This is where the elasticity thing comes into play, right? Free to play, everyone can play your game. They don't necessarily have to pay any money. They could just play your game. So how do you get people to spend money? Who remembers Clash of Clans, any kind of builder game? Right? So they've got that timer, right? That timer that comes down slowly. That is basically moving itself down the elasticity curve. It is saying, well, 5 minutes from now, are you willing to pay this much? 5 minutes from now, are you willing to pay this much? How about now? How about now? That's how they're constantly asking you that question without asking you, is that they show you a little timer that's counting down and how much it's going to cost you. But they never actually explicitly asked you. It's just showing you, how about now? How about now? So that's how they get you to spend in the game. So some challenges from shipping these two different types of very broadly defined types of games, right? Single player, no extra. You're not selling in DLC, anything like that. It's a one-time injection of cash. When you go to Kickstarter, when you go to get an investment, or when you make the sale, everyone who buys that game is going to buy it mostly at the beginning. That's your one-time injection. That money is going to have to carry you over to your next project after covering all the costs from the first project. And you're going to have to do game fixing patches, obviously, for the most part, that you can't really sell because you never really marketed it as like a continuing game. It's a single player thing. You're going to have to do work to fix bugs, things like that. And it's really hard to maximize revenue. Who here pays full price for a single player game when it's first released? Sometimes, right? But you're more willing to pay for it when it goes on sale, right? So standard, it's like $60 now for a AAA game is what we expect, right? So if I sell a game for $60, one or two of you might buy it at $60, right? But then if I price it lower at $40, I might get some more people to buy, but I'm losing the top end revenue. I just lost $20 per person who would have bought it at 60. So it's really hard to maximize your revenue in a situation like this because you can't individually target everyone. And that's where free-to-play games really take advantage of that price elasticity, is they can target you at any point in time to say, how about now? For free-to-play games, the hardest part is getting the first payment. So that's why you see a lot of free-to-play games have started to move over to like new player bundle, starting pack, this and that. They try to get you as much value in the game as they can with a lower price point to get that first payment. That's always the biggest hurdle for free-to-play games, is getting that first payment and getting your payment information. And then everything else after is much easier. So for example, if you use an iPhone like I do, there's the Apple Touch Pay thing. Now you don't even put in a password, you just put your finger on the button and look, oh, I just spent money. That's how it's done. And then scalability. Free-to-play games don't have a barrier to entry. What I mean by that is you don't have to pay to play the game. So if you have a free-to-play game, anyone can enter it, anyone can play. Your servers, your backend, your customer service agents, anything that you have to manage your consumer expectations, your community manager better be prepared for a large wave of people to come in the first weekend and have a whole bunch of issues to bring to you and have questions. It is extremely hard to scale up a free-to-play game if you're not prepared for it. Because you could say, I'm going to have 2 agents on hand, and then suddenly your game goes viral on a subreddit or something, right? Then you have an extra 20,000 people or something charging in. Your 2 people might not be enough. All right. That's the quick crash course in thinking about how to run your game studio. Any questions? We're all ready to make money? Great. Thank you. Do you have your laptop?
borrowing hers because she's best, and my laptop's Garbo. Nice talk, dude.
Do you have an econ degree?
Huh?
Do you have an econ degree?
No, I do not.
Really?
No.
Now I know about. I remember I saw someone. I think it was probably Rami tweet about ARPU and then ARPPU, and it's like it's funny because you say poo poo.
Oh my god, you're such a child.
That's what the number
Oh, here's the storm banner.
I don't know why this thing won't close, but it's probably fine.
Heroes of the storm.
Oh, you're talking about, oh yeah.
We're gonna lay off a bunch of people. Rest in peace, legacy
I
mode.
would not want to. Oh man. Thinking about being on that project at the time, all that stuff.
I was playing it at the time. Well, kind of. I fell off because my friend who was really into it, we would all play it when he got on. But then he started playing in like semi-competitive teams, and then he started not hanging out on our TeamSpeak, but started going to Discord where he would play with his teammates. But now I guess they're like going to League of Legends or something. I don't know. Like, you're like, why, dude? Don't do that to yourself.
I like Tots a lot more.
It's still like around, and they added into here. Yeah.
It's fun.
Yeah, I really enjoy
I
it.
enjoyed. Put it this way, I enjoyed HUD's more
Yeah.
No,
in this
yeah.
like map mode because it didn't.
I like it's so much shorter.
Yeah, it's so much shorter. You're not like
Way more
focused on farm and there's objectives.
Yes,
I
it's
like
way more
the
team
thing.
focused.
Yeah, I like the team leveling system too.
Makes being a tank a lot more fun because you do a lot more tanking instead of like, guess I'm gonna last hit some dudes, and
Yeah.
I guess you're gonna hit me a couple times. So I don't know, gonna health potion or something.
That's always the Eagles. The last
Then, have you ever played Dota?
No, I don't. I don't want to do that to myself.
Because Dota has denying, where you
Yeah.
last hit your own guys to deny
Yeah.
them golden experience.
I'm like, no, I don't want
It's
to do that to
even
myself.
crazier.
I don't need that much micro.
Micro. Come on. Come on. You can do it. I believe in you. Do the thing. Someone. What the heck? Hey, yo. Let's see. We got like 8 minutes to chill. Hi, Jen. Boop, 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 boop. So what games have you guys been playing lately? Super what? Okay. What other games have you been playing lately?
Yeah, it's Smash.
Cool.
Yeah.
Who do you guys main?
Yo, Wii Fitness Trainer is really good.
No, she's not.
And she's so much fun.
Yoshi's actually good. Wii Fit Trainer is okay.
I love Wii Fit.
You can love her, but she's not great.
Disagree.
She has some spiking capability, but her zoning game is not at all substantial.
Wii thinks Yoshi's good, so Yoshi's trash.
Yoshi's not. Yoshi's actually really good.
Yeah, exactly.
Yoshi's maybe top tier.
Wii Fit Trainer's got limited pretty good though.
Not really. She doesn't do enough. Zero Suit is worse than she used to be, but she's still definitely very usable. Best player in Massachusetts still uses her a lot. So. Oh, where's my water? I'm a thirsty boyo. Yoshi is the best aerial drift in the game. Makes weaving a lot really good.
Yeah, like showing you someone's face is really how you do it. My bad. It's just a weird.
let's see. We still have 6 minutes. I've been working through Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice. I think I'm almost done with it.
Oh, I've been wanting to play that. Is it good?
It's interesting. I'm not sure how I feel about it because it's supposed to make you feel super uncomfortable a lot of times because she has some sort of mental illness where she hears a lot of voices all the time.
Yeah, don't the voices try to like persuade you, or not like they just try to like talk to you?
They're just mean a lot of the times. They make fun of you. I don't know if it's necessarily like a form of schizophrenia. It's an interesting experience, and there's like I remember distinctly being like, I don't know if I want to keep playing this, and then I got to like a certain point. I beat the first boss, and I was like, okay, I think I'll commit to it. And it's not that long of a game. So my friends sold me their PS4, and they're like, hey, you can use my account, which has a bunch of games on it, until I get a PS4. But now they have a new one, so I'm trying to finish up this game before I like relinquish everything again. But I'm trying to. I played through Titanfall 2 campaign, and that was really good. I played through What Remains of Edith Finch, which is a weird game.
I've been wanting to play that as well.
I don't think I like it, but I appreciate it. I think some of the mechanics that they do in terms of the gameplay when you get to the episodes are interesting, like how they portray things. But the game itself, I'm like, I don't think that was fun. It's not supposed to be fun.
It's meant to like tell a tragic tale, basically.
Yeah, and it's just like, man, I don't know. What else did I do? I did Uncharted Lost Legacy. That's really good. That's I played 1, 2, 3, and my friend sold me a hard copy of Uncharted 4, but I was like, I'm gonna go through all the digital stuff first. So I haven't done Uncharted 4. Got mild spoilers for that, but Lost Legacy, very good. Big recommend. And what else? Oh, ARPDAU. ARPDAU gets kind of weird, but it's like it's nice.
I don't think I've heard of.
ARPDAU is like Journey but underwater.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can.
I definitely like Journey more though. So, but yeah, ARPDAU's not bad. We got 3 minutes. 3 minutes. Yeah, I've been playing a lot of King K. Rool. I want to be the best King K. Rool player in Massachusetts, which I think is attainable. There's definitely a guy way better than me, but he's in Rhode Island, so.
So technically you're correct.
Yeah, well, I don't know about other players, but the few that